Robert is a hard act to follow, so I will try to be quick so we can get to our break, and as engaging as I can, but I make no promises to be as entertaining as him. Really what I want to talk about today is about redefining the touch points that your customers have with you. And if we take a step back and think about what each of us is concerned with, for many of you, it's probably all about the business and whatever measurements you are held accountable to. So that's obviously your corporate revenue, it's how many leads you generate, it's your brand perception in the market. For those of you in technical documentation, maybe it's about task completion rates for the people trying to solve problems. Or maybe it's customer satisfaction statistics for your customer support team. But essentially, it's all about the business. But of course, for the business, it's all about the customer. And it's really thinking about the entire journey that that customer takes with the business and ensuring that we can, traverse the customer through one of those funnels that Robert had up there at the end, and I've got one of them in my deck too, that we can basically take the customer through the entire journey and ensure that, yes, we will get their business. But of course, for the customer, it's really about the experience. And I completely agree with Robert that the content is largely driving much of that experience. For B2C, obviously, there's still the in-store experience as well. But the customer cares about their day-to-day experience with you as a company, and they don't distinguish between the website and the store and the product documentation or the unveiling experience when they open the box. It's all just your company, and they lump it all together as their experience with you, right? That's how they think about it. That's how we all think about it as customers. And we do know statistically that if we can deliver a great experience, customers are going to be more likely to do more business with us in the future. I think this is, everybody knows this as a customer. When you have a positive experience, it really makes you feel good. You're going to want to do that experience again, right? First time I rode a roller coaster, whee, it was a lot of fun. I love roller coasters now. I will always love roller coasters. I will always go ride roller coasters when I'm at the park. Of course, the inverse of this is also true. From the same study that this stat comes from, about 2/3 of people, obviously if they have a negative experience, will never do business with your company again. And this is, Robert was saying the nasty Yelp reviews. I have to admit, I'm a little bit more forgiving than my wife, but she is definitely one of those people that, if she has a bad experience with your company, she will go on to Yelp, she will rant and rave, and she will never, it's a burnt bridge. She will never do business with your company again. Because the reality is experience is about the emotional connection. And for a lot of companies, the experience that we're delivering may not be negative, it's just par, but that means it's forgettable, right? And so you may be able to land that customer initially, but unless you actually make an impression, they're not going to come back for more. And if you haven't really thought about the entire experience that the customer has throughout the entire journey, if they ever experience a negative experience down the line, then they're done, right? So it's all about the experience. And then you're faced with this question that you have to ask yourself, do you know what experience will actually win the customer? What do they actually care about? And this is where I come back to, you have to connect to them on an emotional level. If you are not connecting to them in a way that they care about, then you're forgettable. Of course, in one study, a lot of companies think that they do this well. I would guess that many of you that are attending today, because you're interested in customer experience, you may do it better than most, but you probably are also realistic enough to realize that you're not doing it as well as you should be. And of course, the funny thing here is that consumers agree that only 8% of consumers think that companies are doing a good job of this. How many companies off the top of your head can you think of that consistently deliver a good experience to you as a customer? You may have the first time where it was great, but then year over year, is it continually great? There's not very many companies that can do that. So then you have to think, well, what is the competition for that experience? And you have your industry competitors. You have your top 4 or 5 companies that you compete with to land the business. You do your competitive research. You know that maybe you have a better product than these other guys, but they've got slicker marketing, or maybe you've got the really good marketing and your product's not so good. Or maybe you've got great marketing and a great product, but your support experience really falls flat. Whatever the case, I would say that you're actually measuring the wrong thing when you're trying to figure out who your competition is by looking at the other people in your industry. The real competition is the competition for your customers' attention. And this is a really, really sad stat for me. I mean, this makes me very, this makes me very sad. Basically, the study was done in 2000, and then it was repeated in 2012. And in 2000, the average attention span for all of us was 12 seconds. And now it's reduced down to 8 seconds, which is less than a goldfish, which is horrible. I like to think we're smarter than a goldfish, and we are. It's just that our attention is so fragmented right now. We all have a smart device in our pocket that's constantly demanding our attention, a new email, a new text message, a new app update, or you got to get that next level in Candy Crush. Whatever it is, there is a constant demand for your attention, and there is constant interruptions on your attention. And so you are not competing against the people that you go up against day to day in your business. You're competing for your customers' attention, and that attention is being won by everything else out there, right? You're competing against Google, you're competing against Facebook, Netflix. Whatever you spend your time on as a customer, that's what you're competing against. Whatever gets your attention as a customer, that's what you're competing against. Which means, unfortunately, most of marketing is focused on the wrong things. I think that this is directly related to what Robert was just talking about. Yeah, we're focused on demand gen and getting people to like us and getting people to attend our webinars or our live events, whatever it happens to be. But are we actually focused on grabbing their attention and sustaining it? And of course, sustaining that attention requires great content and a great experience overall. And so here we have another great stat from another study. And all of the notes are in the slide, by the way, so when we distribute these, you can go and see the studies yourself. 70% of companies don't actually maintain an effective customer feedback loop. I think that almost all companies have methods for gaining feedback. You can always email the company, you can drop some feedback into the website, and you can obviously tweet at their Twitter account, whatever. But do they actually get back to you? It's that loop word in that phrase that's critical, right? We let customers give feedback, but do we actually return the feedback to the customer and continue that conversation? The reason why 70% of companies don't do a good job of this is because only 30% of companies are actually structured internally to create good customer experiences. A good customer experience already has feedback loops built into it. And it knows that in today's world, customers, they don't want to be talked at. They want to have a conversation. And they want that conversation to be ongoing. And they want you to know, as a company, that if I start a conversation with you over here, and then I pick it up over here, I don't want to have to reintroduce the conversation. So if I find your company on Facebook, and I'm traversing one of your products there, and I click a link, and it takes me to your corporate website for that product, and then I want to continue that conversation, I want you as a company to know that that's where I came from. I want you to know what my context is when I'm having this conversation with you. And if you don't know that, if you force me to reintroduce myself over and over again, if you force me to share the same information over and over again, it's very frustrating as a customer. It's a very poor customer experience. It shows me, frankly, that you don't care about me as a customer enough to listen the first time I told you, right? And so that's why, here's our version of that spiral. The entire journey matters. It's not enough to focus, from the marketing angle, it's not enough to focus on the pre-purchase phase. And for technical documenters, technical communicators in the room, It's not enough to focus on the post-purchase phase when customers are getting their hands on instructional materials trying to learn how to use your product. Increasingly, the content that everybody is producing is available at every point in this journey, and customers are accessing that information at every point in this journey. They're looking at instructional content as part of their purchase decision. They're looking at marketing materials when they've already bought your product because they're trying to assess whether or not they want to buy the next product, right? So the entire journey matters. Every single touch point matters. And we wouldn't be SDL if we didn't mention how key language is. We started as a translation company, and we have been focused on delivering content globally since our inception. And really, our focus on customer experience and creating technology that helps you deliver a great customer experience is no exception, because we understand that the world at large speaks a lot of different languages. The good news is you only need about 20 of those languages to reach 80% of the world, and that 80% does represent the people that buy the most stuff, right? So you have to be at least translating all of your content today in 20 languages. I would argue you really want to translate all of your content into any language that any of your customers speak. But if you're not going to do that, at a bare minimum, you have to be in these top 20, right? And of course, the other issue is most of the internet traffic at this point doesn't speak English. And most of us don't hang out on websites that don't speak our language. Is there anybody actually in the room that's bought a product that wasn't in your language, shopped for a product that wasn't in your language? One person, 2, 3, okay, 4. So we have 4 people out of a room of a whole bunch of people. I think that's pretty representative of that particular statistic. People just don't do it. So how do you deliver a great customer experience? You realize all touch points matter. What's the next step? What do you do? Well, you have to know who your customer is. You know, you have the unknown, which these are people out in the world that you've never talked to before. Then they sign up for your email distribution, your spam, basically. Let's face it, it's spam. And now you know who they are, right? But then you actually have to convert them into being a customer. And then once they become a customer, you want to further convert them into an advocate. Because we all know and accept this idea that if you can turn somebody into an advocate, they do a much better job of selling your company than you do. We inherently trust a third party over the company itself. We inherently distrust, to some extent, what the company is saying. So you have to know your customer. You have to know what they want. And one of the ways that you do that is you focus on sharing your customer information throughout the entire organization. So when I say shared profiles, I'm not talking about personas, because that's kind of an outdated concept. I'm talking about sharing real specific customer data across all groups. You've got a lot of content about the data, about the customer trapped in Salesforce or any other CRM system, right? Sales and marketing have access to that, but support typically might not. You've got a lot of information trapped in the support side of the house, where they've got people submitting tickets, customers submitting tickets all the time. They know a lot about their customers. In R&D, you've got customer studies that have been undertaken. They've had direct conversations with customers as they figure out how to make their products better. You know, we aren't going to solve the silo problem in businesses. We're not going to be able to undo that hierarchy that Robert was talking about that was introduced by the Army and the crashing trains. But we at least have to join up not just the marketing content, but also the data that we have about the customer. So you need to have shared customer profiles. It needs to offer, that profile needs to offer a 360-degree view of the customer. And what I mean by that is, it's also not enough to know how your customer relates to you as a company. Is your customer married with 2 children? Do they travel to Europe on vacation versus traveling to Hawaii? Do they like to shop for their friends and family, or are they pretty much only shopping for themselves? You know, there's a lot of information about a customer, about all of us. We're all much bigger than what little these companies know about us. And so you really need to strive to know as much as you can about the customer and have a true 360-degree view of them if you're going to provide a great experience. Because context is determined by how much you do know about the customer. We know that providing a great contextual experience creates a great customer experience, but you only get context based on how much you know about them. And that all leads to, of course, customer analytics and being able to actually share that information also across the organization in easy to understand dashboard reports where you can gain insights, you can start to change your strategies, you can be agile and adapt, right? You can't really be nimble if you don't know which direction to shift to, right? If you don't, and you're not going to know which direction to shift to if you don't have some analytics telling you something about the customers. So you know your customers. Now, how do you reach them? Now, this is that idea that, frankly, in today's world, we reach our customers predominantly through digital means. We reach them via the web. It's not about websites so much as it is about reaching them through the internet, because it could be an app, it could be your corporate website, it could be a blog, it could be an external community that you participate in. But the fact is, that is the dominant way that we reach customers today. And so that means that, knowing that, you have to ensure that the content that you make available is easy to find and use. There are so many companies out there today that are, as Robert was also talking about, just generating volumes and volumes of content. And it's happening not just in marketing, it's happening in R&D, it's happening with technical communicators, it's happening in support. Everybody's just generating this massive amount of content. And oftentimes, a very small portion of it actually gets used by the customer. When you start to put some analytics in there and you find out what content they're landing on. And of course, much of that is driven by how well it's indexed by a certain search engine, and is it in the first page of results, because people don't go beyond the first or second page of results when they're looking for an answer. If you don't focus on ease of use and ease of findability, it doesn't matter how great your content is, it doesn't matter how well it supports a customer experience. If your customers can't find it, it does you no good. We definitely believe that structured content plays a critical role in this. I know that not all content can be structured, but if it can be structured, it should be structured. Because if you can add semantic data to the content itself, you automatically make it more findable. You make it more diversive because you can reformat it in any number of ways. You can publish it to multi-channels. And that leads me to my next point, which is your content has to reach your customer on any channel that they happen to be on, in whatever language they happen to speak, on whatever device they happen to be using at the time, wherever they happen to be located. And it needs to be, it's not enough to say, okay, I'm publishing my content out into these 5 formats, and I know that these 5 formats support all of the channels that my customers use today. It's not good enough. You have to take it a step further and think, okay, when somebody is accessing my content on a smart device, do they have a good data connection or not? Are they going to be okay with or offended by content that uses a lot of data on their plan, right? Like maybe you've got to, and this goes back to the customer profile. Are they heavy data users and they don't have a problem with that? Okay, serve them up a video showing them how to do something or engaging them. But if you know a little bit more about them and you know that they're frugal, then perhaps you don't serve the video, but you serve interactive images instead. You try to respect who they are as a customer. But you can't do that unless you already have a strong omni-channel strategy that really takes the approach of getting content out everywhere. And then once you've reached them, obviously the primary focus is to convert them. This also, it needs to be further than kind of how marketing has thought about this in the past. It's not enough to get somebody to sign up to attend an online event or a real event, and then hopefully you'll get them to come back to your website and follow up, and then the guy can pick up the phone call and have a conversation with them, and then maybe you get a meeting, and then maybe you can sell to them. That's kind of the B2B process. In B2C, It's not enough just to throw, an advertisement out on a billboard or to put, a nice, pretty-looking window display in the shop. You have to be able to take advantage of what you know about the customer and the context that they're in the moment. That's the best way that you can capitalize on converting the customer. So an example of this, and these are the 3 big bullets here: contextual offerings, real-time delivery, and then, of course, localized content, because we only shop in our own language. I'm a huge geek. I love comic books. I always have. And I really enjoy the Marvel movies, right? They're all great. The first time this also leads back to kind of customer loyalty. The first time I saw, Iron Man, it was like, oh, it's an amazing movie, I love it. And then they consistently delivered excellent movies. And we get to the point where, this year they release Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not part of the Avengers group. It's a totally different franchise. I actually didn't know anything about it, but I knew it was a Marvel movie. And so I said, you know what? They've developed enough goodwill for me that I'm just going to go ahead and see this movie. I don't even need to be sold on it. It's a Marvel movie. I'm just going to go, right? That's something that you get when you have consistently good customer experiences. You gain this loyalty and this trust. Now, to further that story with this example, imagine if, knowing that I am this loyal fan of Marvel, I've liked the Facebook page, I know that the movie is out, it's on my list of things I want to go see. If I'm walking down the street, here in San Jose, and we know that it's on a Saturday, you know that I work from Monday through Friday, so obviously I have free time, and my geolocation on my phone shows that I'm really just a few blocks away from a movie theater, and that movie theater happens to be showing Guardians of the Galaxy in the next half hour. At that moment, if something pops up on my phone saying, hey, you said you wanted to see Guardians of the Galaxy, you can do this right now, and we can basically give you walking directions right there, and we can help you purchase your ticket, right? And now with our new smartphones that can buy things so easily, touch of my thumb, and I'm good to go, right? That is the kind of conversion that customers enjoy and really lands customers. If you make it as frictionless as possible, if you make it as targeted as possible, you're way more likely to gain their business. It's not enough to just blast generic messages anymore and put out generic content. It has to be really targeted to the customer. So you have to have all 3 of these things. And of course, if I was in a different country and it was in a different language, I wouldn't be interested. I don't want to see Guardians of the Galaxy in German. That doesn't do anything for me. And I know that in the last presentation, he did say that engage is a loaded word these days, and it is changing. And I agree, it is changing. Basically, on the story that I just described, in the past, it would have been enough to engage me, to have me like the trailer on Facebook, right? Like, oh, he's engaged. He really wants to see this movie. But to actually send me an offer in the moment when I have the time available based on what they know about me, that's pretty engaging. And to remind me how cool this thing is by, when they're doing that, bring up a quick video of the movie right there. That's engaging, right? That's capturing my attention. It's timely. But in order to be engaging, you also have to have these things. You have to be able to listen. I agree that you don't have to have a company presence on every single social platform out there. It really is meaningless for you to have a Twitter account that just does nothing but send out your press releases. Nobody wants that, right? But you do have to know where your customers currently exist online and where they're currently having conversations with each other. And you have to listen to those conversations. This is kind of amazing stuff. We've never been in a world where we can actually eavesdrop politely on our customers talking about us, right? We can engage them in direct conversations. We've always had that ability. But now we can listen to what they're saying about us to each other, as long as they're doing it in a public way. And that's perfectly okay. And in fact, we should be doing that, and they probably expect us to do that. If they're, if somebody's tweeting that they had a poor experience at the hotel and they're tweeting it out to their audience, they're expecting us to be listening and then to respond, right? So you have to listen, which means you have to know where your customers currently exist. Are they predominantly on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram or Snapchat? Or, it doesn't really matter. Know where they are and listen to what they're saying. And then provide true direct feedback mechanisms, true closed loop. This goes back to my earlier slide. You have to be able to close that feedback loop. If somebody engages you, if a customer engages you, regardless of where that comes, whether it's an email or it's a website comment, or maybe they're adding a comment on your user documentation, doesn't matter. You need to be able to respond. You need to have methods in place for quick response, thorough response, have methods of escalation. Think about these things and make sure that you can have that conversation with the customer at any point in that customer journey, right? And different groups are responsible for different places in that customer journey, but everybody is responsible for being able to provide feedback to the customer. And then, last but not least, just making sharing easy, and I don't mean, of course we have the little social widgets on the web pages on our corporate website. But I mean, make all of the content that you create easy to share. Because if you make it easy to share, then your advocates will share it. And you need to have your content in those channels. You don't always know where your customers are having a conversation. Customers change, right? They may be having a conversation today on Facebook, and tomorrow it shifts to Instagram. At least that's the experience. I have some teenagers, and Facebook is not cool anymore. It's all about Instagram. And then Instagram's not cool anymore. It's all about Snapchat, whatever. You have to know when they shift. And one of the best ways that you can know that is by making sharing easy and then figuring out where are they sharing this content. You can see where the content gets shared, and you can say, oh, that's interesting. We've seen an uptick over here. Let's go check this out. Oh, my goodness, here's a whole pocket of people having conversations about this that we weren't even aware of, right? So making sharing easy is key to that. So in kind of a nutshell, and I am wrapping up here. I wanted to make it very quick today. You need to know your customer to be able to reach them. Once you've reached them, you have to be able to convert them. And it's not good enough just to convert them into a customer. You have to continually engage them after you've converted them if you expect them to be advocates of your company, if you want them to continue to do business with you, and honestly, if you want to develop that relationship with them so that they feel comfortable enough to tell you when you're not doing a good job, because you want to be able to respond when, we're not perfect. We are going to mess up. We need to have a process in place for responding to that. And so if you're not engaged, you're never going to hear that negative feedback. So know, reach, convert, and engage across the entire customer journey. Every single touch point matters. Everybody in the business is responsible now for customer experience. It's not marketers' sole responsibility. It's not customer support's sole responsibility. If you today are creating content that somehow reaches your customers, you are partly responsible for customer experience. You are responsible for a moment in time in that customer journey. It's your job to be able to think about how you can know the customer, reach them, help to convert them, and continually engage them. And of course, this is very difficult. A lot of the technology that we have today doesn't do a very good job of this. This is what SDL is squarely focused on today. We have the SDL Customer Experience Cloud. This is the only pitch that I will make, and it's only one slide. But basically, we have all of these various areas of concentration that you see across here that are focused on truly improving the customer experience across the entire customer journey. The analytics spans the entire journey. Social listening spans the entire journey. Documentation increasingly plays a role in pre-purchase as much as post-purchase. Of course, e-commerce, of course, web, of course, your traditional campaigns, and last but certainly not least, absolutely critical, language, being able to get the content in the customer's language, no matter what it might be. And that's where we help you to deliver those engaging experiences, to convert your customers into advocates, and to drive your business's success back to what you care about, increasing your revenue, all those great things. If you want to learn anything more about SDL, if you haven't learned about us already, these are all the different online places that you can go. We'd love to hear your feedback and start a conversation. Come up to me afterwards during the break or at lunch. I'd love to talk to you more. Thanks very much for listening.
All right. I have one favor to ask of you before we go to the break. All right, we're doing a live broadcast, and I would like all of you to stand up. Up. We know what that means. You can do it. You have to go to the break anyway in just a second. And if the cameraman would be so kind, everyone turn around, look backward, the guy's standing up there, and everyone wave! Thank you for attending virtually. We really appreciate it. And thanks for coming to Information Development World, all of you. Enjoy the break. 10:45 breakout start. If you have any questions, stop at the registration desk and they'll try to help you. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.